All right. We're here at the directors panel and part of the ECC. I just lost my page here. It's going in and out of focus. So we're here at day one. A lot of good competition going on. I'm your host, moderator of today. I'm Ahman Green. I'm lecturer and director of esports at the University of Nebraska. Come fall of this year, we have a pretty good program. We are about 50-plus players. And to my right here, good friend, mentor, Chris Haskell. I call him Doc, but that's how I call him. That's how most of everybody.
That's what my mom calls me.
Yeah,
so
there you go. Chris Haskell, and then Mr. Victor Castro from the U.S. Army West Point esports team. So we have some directors over here that started.
Hello. Hey, how you doing?
Yep. And I say Victor started the program, or he got there in 2009, right?
2009. I got to the academy in 2009 for my role as a GS, and then we started the program in 2020.
Yep. So the esports program rolling in 2020. Doc Haskell, when you got there, when did you get to Boise, and when did you start when the program start?
I got there in 07, not 2007, just year 07. And we started the program in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been there 16 years.
Got it.
Or 2016 years for those of you keeping.
Got it. And I started. Yeah. I was at Lakeland University for the last 3 years, and now I just transferred over to the University of Nebraska. Started in January of this year. So I've been coaching esports and now directing it for the past 3.5 years. So, you know, with starting the programs, which we all started the same year. I was 2020 in Lakeland, and so pretty much around the same time. So in starting a program, you know, you got to go out there, start recruiting, talking to, you know, high schools, talking to parents. So what is some of the, I say, best tips for recruiting, you know, in the high school area, on campus, because then you're looking at the club team that are already on campus as well, land on social media. So what were some of your best practices? We can start with you, Victor. Yep.
So for us, it's understanding our demographic that exists at the academy. For the cadets from different variations, from freshmen to seniors, there's an inherent interest that comes to the academy. It was my responsibility as a director to make sure that the program itself hit every pillar that the academy wanted in regards to academic, physical, military, and character. Right. So for us, we're looking at all of those elements from the student. When they come in, then we're also taking into consideration what they need from the program. It's a very intense program. If a lot of people don't know about West Point, there's a rumor that there's 40 hours of work to do within a 24-hour period at West Point. So the idea there is, what can the program do for them, for their personal, sustainment and growth, and really enhance their experience at the academy. So what comes out is every aspect of them, their personality, where they grew up, the elements of their culture, their religions, everything about them that makes them who they are, right. And then they're able to take our brand forward into these these competitive markets. Right. That's very important to us.
All right, there we go. And Doc,
ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Broadway Jay. Jay DeShong from, of course, Grand Canyon University. Yep. The Lopes. Welcome.
The Lopes. All right.
Look at that bracelet game he's rocking right there.
I know, looking good.
I was like, could I wear 2? Could I wear 1? No, he's got 5.
All right, Doc, your turn. So recruiting tips.
I was going to say, what was the question again?
Yeah, recruiting tips.
Broadway J, just like.
The college level, on campus, because starting a new program, you're either talking to the club team or you're reaching out to the club team. And then just going around the neighborhood of Boise, the state, the city, and everything.
Yeah. So there really are 2 levels of recruitment. One is to recruit people to participate in your program in whatever form it is. If it's to bring their club in so that they can play their game in one of the collegiate leagues with the support, we're recruiting individuals who want to do that and lead. We're also recruiting, and by the way, the secret to that is simply make space available and times available. We just ask them for dates on the calendar. When do you want to do a thing? Okay, we'll make space for it. Or we can't start it that late because we've got a match that night, but you can do it on these days or these days, right? We'll try to find a way for them to come and drive the vehicle that we've got. And with club teams, we get them jerseys, we broadcast them. We just don't coach or scholarship them.
Correct.
The second level is the scholarship players, and if I break into a drawl here, it's because I've been reading way too many books from football coaches, and honestly, we're looking for the right kind of person who's going to be successful in our program. And so we want to meet their parents and sit down in a living room setting. For real, you know, Zoom calls lead to actual visits where we try to find, first, really successful academics and pretty good, pretty top-level players, right? But it has to come in that order, because if they're a great player and a terrible student, we can't get them to do both in the college setting. We've got to make sure they can do both. We can make a great student a better player, but it's hard to make a great player a dramatically better student for them to be successful. So that, I mean, it really is. You'll see floating around here one of our recruits who's from Arlington. Cade Hall, Woozy, a top-level Rocket League player. We're most interested in him not because he's a rank A, rank X player, but because he's a 3.9 plus student, and he comes from a really solid family foundation. And those things we have found equal success that we would be able to invest our relatively small scholarship budget toward.
Yeah, because the dedication is already there, the structure is already there, and they know the game plan. Once the time that the alarm clock goes off or whatever wakes them up in the morning, they know what point A to point Z or D is by the end of the day. So
exactly.
So you got to have that.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Doc says. From the recruitment standpoint of the program, we definitely look to just create space, right? I look at gaming and esports as more of a mechanism for our students to be more engaged on campus, and it doesn't just have to be games, right? We do a lot of anime nights or cosplay nights or just things that might be attached to gaming, right? That might pull in a student who maybe wasn't coming out of the room on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or maybe doesn't have a social support system in their college experience. So for us, from a broader standpoint, it's more about creating space, just like Doc says. And then past that, to echo the same point, as it relates to our competitive players, all the guys that we scholarship and even the folks that we don't scholarship, I'm a traditional sports kind of guy. I come from Mississippi State and the SEC. I'm character over your quality as a player. I think you can make somebody with great character a great player. I don't necessarily believe that you can always make a great player into somebody with great character. Sometimes you find diamonds in the rough, but a lot of times in my experience, I've found it's a lot better to find somebody with great character and turn them into a great player rather than vice versa. So we definitely place character first and grades first, because we're looking to kind of level up the space rather than keep it where it is. So creating space for students so that they have a social support system on campus, and then also holding character as kind of the highest part of our competitive system, so that we make sure that we're raising the bar in the world of collegiate esports.
Right, and you got to have that. I say you got to have that high bar level at the education, because then the kids already know what they're walking into in the esports realm. Because a lot of them may think, oh, we're playing games, we're just here to have fun. Maybe in the club sense of it, but not at the varsity side of it, because it's all about eligibility and us as coaches making sure we're pushing the needle to make sure the students understand how important the schooling is before we jump in, the league game, Call of Duty match, or what have you. I say for a tip, I say something I did with the athletic department in my second semester at Lakeland to get the campus engagement. I sent the email out to all the traditional sports coaches and said, hey, anybody want to have a team day at the esports facility? Because a lot of people on campus didn't know where we were. We were an old wrestling building in the back of campus, literally. And so I was like, between engagement, letting the coaches know, letting their players know, and the one team that did show up was the women's wrestling. And they came in there. We had a great day. I said, you know what? It was only like 5 or 6 of them. And I said, look, it's no big tournament. I said, I will show you how to log into your computer with your student ID. And then we have these games downloaded on the PCs. And then if y'all want to play Rocket League or Among Us, go right ahead. If not, y'all want to play music. And they was like, oh, okay. So we ended up putting a Taylor Swift on for about 2 hours. And they play a little bit of Among Us and Fallout Guys. But it was just the engagement, and then for the rest of the semester, those girls were coming over to support the rest of the esports players when they played their matches. So it was just having that, little bit of, fun you give them. And then they learned something that day, pretty much. So
it gave them a home away from home.
Exactly. So next question here. So speaking, we talked about a little bit about, you mentioned, Doc, about going to the home, talking to the parents. So getting that parents' engagement, how crucial is that when it comes to students wanting to continue their growth in gaming and beyond into the next phase of life, basically after college?
Well, For us, it's a little bit more direct. The whole entire United States of America entrusts the United States Military Academy with their sons and daughters to prepare them to lead, in our nation's wars. So the idea there is that we have to do right by those families, regardless of brother, sister, anybody else that's involved. So the expectation is that we're offering the highest quality at all times. So when we approach an esports program, we went to the people that know. We went to our mentors and leaders from a director's position and learned, because that's the best thing you can do. Immediately go to the people that are doing it right, even when they're making mistakes. There's lessons learned. But my service is to those families. My service is to those parents and sisters and cousins, everybody, because ultimately they've swore an oath and they gave a commitment to the nation. So I'm going to do my job to give them what they need as well.
Right. Doc or Trey?
Repeat the question for me.
It was basically, so speaking of the parent engagement,
Yep.
How crucial it is when it comes to the students and showing them the career paths. And then showing them career paths in college and then after when they're graduated.
I would say parents are kind of number one for us in the world of scholastic and collegiate esports, because the biggest piece that they're missing is the education part, right? I think it's really easy for all of our parents to push us into traditional sports because they know from ages 5 to 18, I'm going to be in a team environment that makes sense, right? I might have a chance to make the high school team, make the college team, go to school for free, and maybe one day make millions of dollars. And then if that doesn't work out, then maybe I'll be a social media guy for my favorite NFL team, or I'll be a behind-the-scenes operations guy for my favorite baseball team, right? So showing parents that this is almost exactly the same thing as traditional sports, as you see in traditional sports, as in esports, and helping create what I call a pipeline similar to traditional sports, because I believe we face in scholastic what I call, and a lot of people call, the pipeline problem, which is exactly that. Parents can't push their kid at 5 years old into Rocket League because there's not a Little League, right? And then there's not a high school team necessarily all the time, right? Then there's not a college for them to go to and get a scholarship, right? And then there's not necessarily a place for them to go and work for a GCU in operations full time doing social media for esports, right? We're getting there, but helping parents understand that these opportunities do exist just like they do in traditional sports, so that they feel comfortable pushing their kids into esports the same way that they do in traditional sports.
Right. It makes a lot of sense there. So we'll start back to you, Doc. As a director, how do you balance your priorities between community, competition, we already kind of hit on it, and academics? So how do you balance that? And with I say there's other pillars, with trying to make, a champion or a really good team. So how do you prioritize that and get the students to understand what comes first, basically?
So there's a couple of ways to answer that question. I can answer it personally, and what do I prioritize and how do I prioritize those things in what I do. The other one is largely determined by what the university has placed in the importance. So when I hear academics, one of the things that pops into my mind is, the coursework that's being offered, the community support of the facility and the space and the teams, and then the competitive side of it. I don't make those decisions. We don't offer courses in esports. We are like a football team where we are a platform that other departments can build their curriculum around and do. So communications does some stuff. There's a element of our sports management degree that spends time with us. We don't create classes. I am 100% a head coach.
Gotcha.
So my first concern is academics, followed closely by competition. 100%. My job is to get our players ready to play. But to lean back on the question you just asked, I need to know the character of the people we're bringing in and recruiting, and 100%. The fastest way I can get to understanding the character of somebody is through interactions with their family. Now, there are 100%. Some that just do not have good relationships with their parents, and that doesn't mean that that's a red flag.
Right.
But it is more to unpack
it's
there.
It's a warning. It's a warning.
Well, it can be a warning, but sometimes for the student, it has nothing to do with decisions that they're making.
True.
It's been enforced. So there's more to unpack there. But if I am recruiting somebody, one of the first things I want to do is I want to meet their family. I want to get on a Zoom call at least, meet their family, and get to know more about them as a person. Because what will happen when they come is that they will bring with them a lot of that support system, in and around. It starts to break off a little bit, as it should when they go to college. But I need to understand what roles I'll be expected to fulfill for that person, because it becomes this shared custody for a little bit. I mean, the players would think that's cringy, but it's true. My job is to make sure they don't die. And their parents' job for the last 18 years was so that they don't die. We just need to keep them fed, clean, and all those things.
Yeah, learn how to survive.
So So to answer the question as quickly as I can in your job, my number one job is academics. Closely in there is our competitive readiness. Are we practicing right? And then as community needs come up, I try to support those as much as time will allow, which is a lot because we're there all the time. But
100%.
yeah, I mean, the community has to have a space. They can't feel like they're locked out on our campus, even though we have a scholarship component of our program.
Correct. You got to make sure who's coming to campus, basically, and find that out. But you find that out at home. So, Victor?
All right, so again, United States Military Academy, well known throughout the Northeast in regards to what it does for the nation. For us, community is outreach to ensure that we're working with the local community. Scholastically, as everything you see in this auditorium right now is a target group. We'll start to show up to show that there is a pathway into what they're doing and the hard work that parents and families are doing. And then when we show up as that element, it also demonstrates how it's bridging across, high-level universities as well as something like, the federal government and Army itself. Correct. So for us in the near future, I'm going to be looking at local businesses that are putting on esports environments, such as people like Contender Hudson Valley, that normally just say, hey, here's the thing, and we're looking at Bosie's programs. We're looking at, we even target the superintendents and any of the principals in the area to understand it more. And then when we bring our brand, they can see that if our values within the academy are falling within this space, they can probably bridge their scholastic environments too. Right. So pretty much just offering more community outreach.
Gotcha. Right.
Yeah, I would say for me, I learned a little bit coming from Mississippi State. My first time being in the SEC, I was all about competition. But I found that very quickly, competition is a really small part of collegiate esports. For us at GCU, it's exactly 10% of our greater membership or the people that compete. So we're community first at GCU. I learned through my experience at Mississippi State, again, that the majority of people who come into our program and come to be a part of our club or events, they're looking for a casual community. They're looking for a second home. Right? So we look to provide them that second home. We put community first at GCU because without community, we don't have anything else. We don't have events. We don't have support for our competitive teams. We don't have a home. We don't have a space. We don't have a reason to exist almost without the community, right? So we're community first because without the community, we simply don't exist. And then everything else kind of falls after that because, again, competition doesn't exist without community to support it.
No, yeah, for sure. And Doc is nudging me over here, being the friends that we are. He said, give me some hard-hitting questions. All right, we're talking about hard-hitting questions here. Let me delve into something we've talked about through text message. And I just got hired at Nebraska. I give you a call, and we're talking about, and you tell me, and give me Trey. Jay. So Jay mentioned community. Right at the end of this talking about community, and I remember we talked about, me getting into Lincoln, and then even though it's a place where I'm from, I haven't been there in 22 years. I've only gone back for a couple games every now and then. So learning the lay of the land. So you said that to me. So let's unpack that a little bit. Start with you because you asked me that. You said, Ahman, when you go back home, even though that's home, brothers, sisters, family, you played college ball there, but it's a different city now, a different college. So unpack learning the lay of the land and how, as a director, coach, where you could get indoctrinated into the club team a little bit faster by learning the lay of the land. And then knowing where you need to go, who you need to talk to first.
It is really, really easy to offend club members because they are the ones who are lobbying for the school to put resources behind the program. And when they do, they find that somebody else has been hired to be in charge of it, and they've been carrying it the whole time. Sure. It is really easy to make people mad and to alienate them. And having said that, sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes just the process of not being in charge of it anymore, not being in charge of the revolution, as it were, they're going to feel displaced, even if you're trying to make sure they don't feel displaced. Correct. All of that is true and can happen. And so you just know going in that that's going to be part of it. We have a yes policy with all of our students and clubs. We don't charge for the use of the facility. We make all things that they want to do a yes first answer, and then we try to figure out if there's a conflict, how do we get both things to happen?
Yep.
But it's tricky because they've known it for years. They've been in the trenches, and then this new general comes along, and it's like, everybody out of the trench. It's going to be easy. We just march on the Capitol now, and that's hard. That's hard to manage, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you experience a little bit of that? People like just not sure. Like, are you going to take away stuff from us, or are you going to give us everything we've been asking for?
I say with the new campus, I've been getting that last statement. Are you going to give us what we've been asking for?
Yeah.
You know, because at Nebraska, the club team was doing their thing, running their program. I mean, they have a 80-plus participant program. So you're talking about 80 players, run by students. They have voting for president, treasurer, officers. And when I found that out, I said, okay, this is a well-oiled machine. I'm not coming in here to mess this up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just come in here, what you taught me.
Yeah.
Hey, what you need?
Yeah.
What do you need from me? I'm now a faculty member that's going to help you now get organized. So I just want to do that. What do you need from me, and how can we help from an administrator standpoint when most of the administrators, as we know, may not know exactly what esports is, what Valorant is, what Rocket League is, what Overwatch is. You know, other than we know it's a high point that we look down, make sure you watch the area, you know, what we know as coaches and directors. So, you know, once you establish that, and once it did establish that, then it was a lot easier to talk to the kids. And right away, the defense wall was down, and they knew where I was coming from because I was on there. They found out, oh, he's on our side. You know, he wants that, and that's what you want, you know, when you get there.
Yeah, they need to feel supported. But the truth is, you have to use, you know, a little bit of the leadership improv.
100%.
Number one improv rule is yes and, but oftentimes in leadership, you have to say no but. Right? They're asking for something, and you just you don't have the financial means, or you don't have space, or
and you're being truthful.
Yeah,
just give them the truth. Tell them what it is, what's going on. You know, if funding's not here right now, but this is going to come in later, or this is going to happen for now. This is what we're getting for now.
I can't, but I will take your request forward.
Exactly. I'm writing it down.
Yep.
You know, give them that
100%.
That truth right there. Will then let them know, okay, we know what we're working with. This is what we got. And this is what we got to work to get, and we're going to get there together pretty much.
All right, and Castro just whispered to me, you may not have seen it, that he wants the really hard question next.
All right. Yeah, this is going to be my last one, too. I'm actually going to go present awards here in a little bit.
Okay, well, no,
same
question. Same question. So, you know, getting that,
I'm sorry, we're keeping you from your
you know.
Oh, my God, stop. Yeah, I'm not winning. Okay.
No, so same question.
Yes.
For yourself.
So for me as a director, I needed to understand the space. You know, obviously I'm also a veteran as well, having served, you know, in the 10th Mountain Division's 1st Brigade, and having spent time. So the idea there is that I know the space, I know the soldiers, and having been able to come from that environment, I know what the academy needs in regards to the development in the esports space. Then also understand that military families are committing a lot of sacrifice and time and effort in a lot of things that they're dealing with. So I also noticed that, you know, my wife and my son haven't experienced me being in combat. So those are the kinds of things that I needed to make sure that anybody that comes into the program, we recognize that there's a very huge frustrations, especially for our cadets today, because they have a lot of other things that they have to think of, qualifying with their weapon, you know, hitting circumstances that they got to do in order to graduate. I respond to that by knowing, like, I know where you're coming from, been there, done that. Arguably, it was a long time ago. Not going to date myself, everybody, but it's still a lot tougher on them. But having been in this space, I know what they're going through.
All right. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you, everybody.
Got to
get going.
So thank you. Good luck.
Jump over here with you.
Yeah, get a little closer. We're all friends up here.
Right. Yeah, I would say a quick answer for me, and you'll learn about me more than I love to talk. I love to hear myself talk, so I'll try to keep this one brief. For me, it's all about bridge building while being a transparent human. I would say that's the simple for me. Bridge building from administrators to teachers to students, while doing exactly what you all were speaking about, helping students understand why we have to make decisions the way that we do right now. So if we're not able to hand you a Splatoon 2 tournament with 80 switches, I'm going to explain to you why and what's keeping us from having that right now. And I'm likely to show you a roadway to how we can get there, right? So I would say, hey, you know, helping everybody understand how we can get there, why this thing is important, and then when we have moments of kind of maybe, you know, trouble, helping everyone understand why we're here and how we're going to get past it, right? So helping everybody understand what we're trying to do, and then being transparent in how we're doing it, right? So I would say it's all about building the bridges and being transparent human while you're doing that.
Or being the ask, hey, Coach, we want to go to a LAN event in Colorado.
Right.
we don't have the funding right now.
Right.
You know,
Or
just plainly, bluntly, just say it just like that, because then they know right away, okay, Coach Green or Coach Haskell, Coach, last name?
DeShong.
DeShong.
Yep.
Well, just tell it like it is.
Yeah, capital S.
And you got to have that. I say once you have that buy-in, then they're willing to listen and take in all the information from you and the other coaches, you know, that are on staff. So next question here is, when you're developing that, I say that you said pipeline in a different way earlier, but pipeline to me, coming from the football world, is that high school I'm going to go to for Rocket League players or Call of Duty players or running backs or quarterbacks. So for I've kind of flipped that from traditional sense into the esports sense. Right. So in developing that connection with that local high school or just a high school in general in the U.S., how do you integrate that high school and then let them know this is what we're going to do here at Grand Canyon, at Boise, at Nebraska, to bring in more of your students and let them know there's a lot of opportunities outside of being the best shooter, fighting game, sports game player on the roster.
Yeah, so for us at Grand Canyon, we're really lucky. Contrary to other schools I've either been a part of or know about, we get a lot of support from our admissions and recruiting department directly. So when we say, hey, we want to reach 10,000 high school students to help them understand that we have broadcast opportunities once they get here, they help us do that. They'll help us reach out directly. They'll set up meetings. They'll set up speaking, symposiums for us. So we go through admissions and recruiting at GCU, and they help us connect directly to those students, their parents, and their staff. So for us, it's pretty simple. We just kind of ask, and they help us out. So I would say for us, it's a lot simpler than maybe other places.
Doc?
So we're really good at, I think, engaging the competitive students. So we'll host the state tournament next weekend.
High school
state tournament. We'll host it. It's the time of year. We travel the most, and we have the most things happening in our space. So.
Which is a good thing. It's
it's why I look this way. I'm only 35, folks. It's unfortunate. It's like Interstellar. I live on Miller's planet. I'm just aging at a much greater rate.
So, love it. You know you're in Texas. You know that. You're right.
That's all right. So we do that well. We do competitive well. We do multiple tournaments throughout the year. What we don't do well is the non-competitive community building game events. We need to do that better because there are a lot of people who love the space that don't get a chance to come in and drive our vehicle because we're making it all about top-level competitive, and we're making them do a bracket before they come, right? They don't get to come and enjoy just being a gamer with other gamers. Now, I will say that we do support a lot of community Smash events, and if you've ever been to a Smash event, like a big Smash event, you know that everybody is welcome. Everybody. Yeah. It is not strange to see two people in full suits and then somebody walk by in a Where's Waldo costume. That happened at our last event.
Yep.
And at a Smash event, you're like, yep, that tracks. So we need to do that part better. How do for the high schools especially, we need to give them events that are more about participating and less about winning.
Right.
So that people that shy away, and there are a lot that shy away from, the competition, to get in.
Yeah. I said next question. Thank you for those questions so far. Something year one I realized as an esports coach at Lakeland that
it was the greatest scam you ever perpetrated.
No.
Year one.
No. It was just interesting to see because I've been a gamer my entire life, along with being a traditional sport athlete and a student. And I noticed that first semester how some of my players, don't matter the game, it would be any of the games, that they were so frustrated when losing. When I'm like, I've logged into Halo, 2K, Overwatch, and lost every other game. I say, how are you not adjusting to losing? Yeah. So take me through what you did to address it, and what was the learning points that y'all pulled out of them for the students to learn, the players to learn how to deal with a loss and then how to get better from that loss. You can start with you, Doc.
So I'll just let you know, as a head coach, no one in Division I has lost more games than this guy. 448.
Oh, you know the number.
Losses.
I like it.
That's 1,100 wins, which is also the top end of Division I. A lot of our our colleagues are Division II and Division III.
Yep, and JC.
And it just shows you I'm old, right? And So I've had to get much better at the adjustment of we didn't get what we wanted to, and it's okay to not feel great about it, right? If you just delude yourself and say it doesn't matter, then everything you said before that is thrown into question. Like, well, we were working so hard, all of this preparation. Mm-hmm. But I would much rather lose in a really close match against a really tough opponent than win everything by a blowout. I think that would be really, really boring. The losses make the wins sweeter.
Yep.
And so a lot of that is me sharing my experience with the students and helping them put it in perspective. But I'll tell you a story. We had a student this last year who is a long way from even becoming comfortable with losing. It triggers such bad behavior that we will probably not be able to support that student if something doesn't dramatically change. Wow. Right? Can't throw controllers, can't swear, can't stomp around, can't sit on stage in a ball for a half an hour after the match. And I mean, some of it is observed behavior, and like, oh, top players, they do that. Top players don't do that. Top players.
You talking about players? Is he observing players in the building or on stream?
Honestly, I mean, he may have just
Twitch.
He may have seen like a football player at his high school or something like that, just sit in the end zone and weep, and that is a genuine response for a moment. But if you can't snap into the place that you are, there's very little I can do to help you. If you're not willing to be honest with yourself about what it means, then there's very little I can teach you about it. Yep. So here's what I would say is that learning to lose is something that we end up having to teach, and no one likes it, and they shouldn't. Right. Yep. But you have to be able to go on and make the next performance just incrementally better, even if that performance is in your expectation setting.
Right.
So. Yeah, it's crazy, but it's true.
There you go. All right.
I see you back there, clear. I'm not talking about you. Jonathan Foraker, ladies and gentlemen. Stand up. Oh, he is. I'm sorry.
Right,
my bad. I love you, brother.
Giving him a hard time. Got it. Jay.
Yeah, so I would say for us, we look at wins and losses a lot of times the same way, at least the way that I talk to our students about it, right? So the three things that we always talk about is focusing on things within your control, taking the positive and leaving the negative. And that was something I actually said at Boise when we were there, when Boise actually beat us to win the championship, to lose the championship. Just a second ago, we did lose, by the way. You guys did just beat us. But I was talking about a couple months ago when you guys beat us. But no, back then it was the same thing. It's take the positive and leave the negative, right? Be honest with yourself about the things that you could have done to go a little bit further, and anything else, leave it in the past. And for us, we don't go backwards. So like Doc said, as long as we're getting incrementally better, even if we walk away from here 0-2, as long as we walk away a little bit better and we don't go backwards from that, this is a win for me and the team, right? So as long as we focus on things within our control, we take the positive from wins or losses, and then leave the negative. I think that every single time, win or lose, we're getting better. And for us and for our students, that's what we're focused on, is making better humans, better students, and better competitors. I just remembered something.
So even for the top teams in the country, you end the season with a loss more than 50% of the time. Even for the best teams in the country. Now let's say, take Maryville. Yep. Dan Clark and I have talked about this before. Most seasons, most tournaments, with the rare exception, end in a loss for everybody except the absolute winner. But on the aggregate, you leave tournaments with losses more often. So you better learn how to do that with some grace, or you're not going to have success. Or, more importantly, you're not going to notice when you are having success.
Correct.
Yeah, because you'll be trying to get back to this place that doesn't exist, which is winning all the time.
Right. So we're wrapping it up here, but we got a couple good questions for you. So what was the biggest, bump in the road as a coach, as a director, setting up the program or just managing the team? Big bump in the road that you were able to look back and it's like, I'm glad that happened, or it was something that made me better later on, in my coaching career, basically. Jay, we can start with you.
I'm thinking over here. I don't make too many mistakes, so I have to think.
Oh, okay.
Honestly, for me, it took me a long time to learn that sometimes the best thing you can say is no. we can't, or I can't.
Right.
Because I put way too many things on my shoulders and said, well, let me see what I can do. And I would grind and try to solve a problem or create a thing or bring somebody in or find some money. And in the end, I disappointed them. And it was sustaining false hope for something I probably knew I couldn't accomplish along the way. And sometimes it's telling a student, you are still loved, you still have a place here, but you are not going to be on a scholarship next semester.
Right.
And for many reasons, but you know, you go back to Moneyball, tell them the truth.
Yep.
Treat them like an adult, and move on. That's all you can do.
That's it.
You had plenty of teammates over the years that were cut. You know, that
every year.
Yeah, every year, and that's a tough thing to do, and it's not a desirable thing ever. But
Right.
it is something we just have to be able to deliver bad news with love.
Yeah.
And not shut people out. It's just that your role is changing.
It's changing.
Right.
Anything pop in, Jay?
I did think of the one mistake I made. Yeah, when I was at Mississippi State, and there's not one moment, but I would say from my experience in Mississippi State, I was pretty blind and focused on for a year and a half. Yeah.
I feel like I should have known that.
Yeah, you probably, Doc. No, but the experience I had there, I was pretty blind and I was pretty focused on what we wanted to accomplish, what I wanted to accomplish. And with that, I didn't necessarily care too much about opinions of our constituents, of our community members, of our leaders, right? And I was pretty straightforward about my opinions on their wants or their needs or things that they felt they wanted, right? And I kind of learned that as a leader, that's not always the best way to lead, and I would kind of go back to what you said a second ago. I learned that it's kind of best to lead with love. That's what I learned from Mississippi State to GCU. I was pretty, I would say, not hate-filled, but hate-driven or angrily driven, right, when I was at Mississippi State. And that all didn't always translate into great leadership, right? So when I came to GCU, I made it a point to make sure that I led every conversation, every moment, everything that I do with love, because in this space in gaming and esports, we're dealing with a lot of kids who haven't necessarily had a home or haven't necessarily felt at home, right? So making those students feel like they have a home and somebody to talk to, whether it's me or coaches or other community members, right? I would say that's the biggest thing that I've learned. I'm kind of in this director position, and the leadership position is to lead with love, and I found that to be the most successful, contrary to Mississippi State.
Gotcha.
So, as he was talking, he inspired the real way of saying it.
Okay.
That for every student in our program, their place is secured. That's the position of love that you've inspired. Their place is secure, but their role will change. Their role will change. It just will over time. And that's something we all have to be comfortable with, and that's true of me too.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we're looking on the geological scale for me, but you know, my position is secure, but my role will eventually change.
Gotcha.
To fossil.
Yeah, I'm gonna be right behind you in a couple of years. So, a couple questions here to wrap it up, or last question here to wrap it up. So, with esports in general, in terms of where our space is at, we're cultivating, you know, college talent for the next level of wherever they go. If it's pro, if it's into the workforce. So what is the biggest, I say, attribute you want to teach them, regardless of the gaming side of it, you know, as a director in your program, when you come to Boise, this is your big hope for them when they leave, that when they come out of our program, what is that?
We look for and try to cultivate 3 abilities in our folks, right? Reliability, availability, so that they come to the things, and adaptability.
They show up on time.
And adaptability. Those are the things we need when they come in, and those are things we try to amplify as they leave.
Right. Things in life.
And I'm going to add another ability. For us, it's teaching our students accountability. I think a lot of young people, especially in the esports and gaming space, right? A lot of the people in the esports and gaming space, they've never been taught. I've found with our students, I've found with our players, students, everybody across the board, a lot of our kids haven't been taught accountability or how to hold themselves accountable or their teammates accountable, right? So I put at the forefront of importance that we want to teach our kids how to be accountable, how to hold themselves accountable, and how to constructively hold their teammates accountable, because that's something that we all know is going to apply to their entire life, right? So if they leave college without learning how to be accountable, I feel I failed them as a leader. So accountability is a big one for us, because I feel if they have that, they can figure the rest out. Yeah,
and I'm right next. I'm on the same level at that. And accountability, you know, telling somebody that, oh, I'm going to be there at 9 a.m. or whatever, you know, I'm going to be there at 8:55 to be there on time, ready for whatever we're doing. if it's practice, if it's a casual event or whatever it is, to make sure the kids understand that this is not something you just doing for now. It's going to carry with you and be a learned task, just like they're learning to play Halo better or Valorant better. It's going to be that same type of mechanic that it'll kick in. Like when you say stuff, you show up to do it, and you show up to do your job right. So anything else you want to add before
I'm just going to have my tattoo altered now for accountability. And it's a lower back tattoo, so it's a little more complicated. But
you got a tramp stamp?
It says availability, reliability. I'm reading into why that's not a great tramp stamp. All right,
Jay, anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
Just looking to get some jewelry like Doc's to add to my collection. That's all. Yep, that's all. Yep. They're just they're a little loud, so I'm just looking to grab some. Appreciate y'all having me up here.
Hey, me too. I'm trying to grab one or two myself. But thank you, gentlemen, for talking. Doc, I mean, I have to put you on punishment or something with all the chaos you're causing up here, you know. But everybody, thank you for listening in for the last hour, and appreciate you. Thank you.